Okay, well, I guess I'll start with my education. I went to high school in Philadelphia. It was
Hmm.
a pretty famous high school where Bill Cosby actually went when he was a better man.
Okay.
Um, and then after, uh, did my undergrad at the University of Pennsylvania,
Hmm.
and I majored in electrical engineering. Um, During that time, I was also a pre-med,
Okay.
and for financial reasons, I decided to work for a little bit
Hmm.
and went to Burlington, Vermont, worked at IBM for 2 years.
When was that?
This was in the close to 2000.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So worked there for 2 years and realized that I did like the work, but I always wanted to be a doctor, and that was my calling.
Okay.
Um, so I said my goodbyes to IBM, and thereafter decided to go back to West Philadelphia, where I was born and raised, and joined a neuropharmacology lab at Hahnemann, and then became Drexel Medical School. Um, During which time I applied to uh, medical school and then studied for the MCAT, and after doing all the application process, got accepted to Albany Medical College and went there. I think it was one of the best medical schools in the United States,
Hmm.
personally, because of the way they trained and how well we were all prepared. Um, then, residency, of course. I did that at Penn State. I decided to do radiology, and the reason why I got into radiology was kind of easy for me in the beginning.
Hmm.
I had an electrical engineering background, a science background, and so I was attracted to MRIs and the physics of CAT scans. But once I got into it, I did miss, some of the patient care aspects that I learned in medical school. One of the things you'll find is that you never know what you're good at until you try
Hmm.
it. So in medical school, one of the things that I didn't know that I was good at is patient care. And in the third and fourth years of medical school, I had very, very positive feedback from patients saying that, I was a great doctor, or was going to become a great doctor. And so that kind of got to me. And by that time, I had already uh, invested in going into radiology. So once in radiology, in residency, year one, I not regretted the residency, but I missed the clinical aspects of medicine. Reading X-rays and MSK films was kind of dry, and was had some second thoughts.
Hmm.
But then I stayed with radiology, and in the second year of residency, I got introduced to interventional radiology. I didn't know that existed in medical school, and I didn't really pay much attention to it, but that's kind of where I found myself. It was all, it was very, very scientific, very technical, and at the same time, you are taking care of patients and having the best of both worlds, to the point where actually in interventional radiology, rounding is very, very lean, and most of the day you spent doing procedures, fixing
Hmm.
patients. And so I really, really like that. I decided to stay at Penn State and did my fellowship. It was called a fellowship at the time in interventional radiology. Had a blast, and at the time, the economy wasn't doing really well. And you know how you have the cycles in the job cycles. Uh, Fortunate enough to get into Geisinger as an attending, which was close to home, which is Philadelphia for me, and started working there. And I've been there 8 years.
Nice. Very nice. So when did you become the fellowship director?
We decided to have a fellowship around 2013,
Okay.
and initially, uh, the you basically have to have certain requirements to become a fellowship director. One of them is to have the CAQ exam, and that was after passing the CAQ, I became the official program director 2015, but started running the whole program, and I built it from scratch in 2014.
Very nice. So tell us that when did you become the residency program director for IRDR, independent IR pathway?
That's relatively recent. As soon as the transition started to occur, I think it was around 2017, 2018,
Okay.
we put our applications in as well. And I would say I officially became residency director 2019. I was a circuit designer.
Okay.
Basically, what IBM did was, at least in Essex Junction, Vermont, they took contracts to create application-specific integrated circuits.
Okay.
For example, it could be defense, it could be Hughes Space Center, even Nintendo. I remember at the time we had a contract with Nintendo,
Nice.
and so they'll ask us to make certain types of chips. My job was to design the input-output buffers that transmit the signal onto and off of chips. They're kind of very high speed and a very very noisy portion of the CPU, and so you have to design these with care so that you have less noise on the chip that can cause faulty triggering of other circuits.
So you were an electrical engineer?
Yes.
Oh, you were an electrical engineer.
I was born in Kohar.
Kohar.
Kohar is near Jhelum, which is probably a
Really?
city. I was born in Peshawar, and I grew up in Kohar. So
Oh, okay.
I wonder if the Pashto people in that area, some of the Pakistani people speak Saraiki there, and we sort of immigrated to Kohar afterwards, and I don't know if that language came with us.
Interesting.
My older brothers started to speak Pashto. My dad, he learned Pashto and spoke that.
Really?
But
Nice.
I never got the opportunity. He was too young.
Okay. All right. Cool.